Welcome to Yahoo Sports Daily. He's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. We've got tons to get to over the course of the next couple of hours. But Caroline, we start with the WNBA where Caitlin Clark and the Fever took down Toronto. Kelsey drops 29, Caitlin with 24. Indiana picks up their fifth straight win. With the way Kelsey and Caitlin are playing right now, is that to you the best duo in the W?
It's the best scoring duo in the WNBA, and I would be willing to debate that with anybody who is willing to listen or anybody who's willing to have that debate with me. Because Kelsey Mitchell has now had 20 consecutive 20-plus point games. That Caitlin Clark has set and has broken her own record for most consecutive games with 20 points, at least 20 points, and at least 5 assists. If you look at the scoring leaders, the individual scoring leaders in the WNBA, well, Kelsey Mitchell's sitting at 2, Caitlin Clark is sitting at 3. There are no other duos from the same team sitting in the top 5. So I understand me saying that Kelsey Mitchell and Caitlin Clark are the best scoring duo in the WNBA does not mean that I think the Fever are the best team in the WNBA. It does not mean that I think those two as individuals are individually the best players in the WNBA. But when you just look purely at duos, and there are so many great trios in the WNBA. You have Ryan Howard, Alicia Gray, and Angel Reese in Atlanta, who we saw on full display last night against the Aces. We'll get to that in just a moment. You have a big 3 in Minnesota. Obviously, you have a big 3 in Indiana as well. When you just talk about dynamic duos, dynamic scoring duos, well, Kelsey Mitchell and Caitlin Clark are 2 really big reasons, if not the reasons, that Indiana has the best offense in the WNBA and is on path to having a historic offense, one of the highest scoring offenses, if not the highest scoring offense in the history of this league. I mean, the firepower on this team, the scoring power on this team, led by those 2 right there, it's championship level.
It's a beast that's really hard to figure out how to stop also. When you've got 2 people that can dynamically score from all over the court, which both can, that gives you opportunity. Best is such a hard word for me because you're right. Trios is a wildly different conversation. I will say right now it's the hottest. Like nobody's scoring at a clip like they are across the board. And no matter what anybody does, you can't seem to consistently shut either of them down. So maybe that makes them best. I don't know. This is tough for me. It certainly makes them the hottest. I struggle sometimes with what to do with the Vegas 3, which at times can be a Vegas 2. I don't know how I feel about them compared, especially with the championships they have. But when we're talking best, we're at least talking about right now most unstoppable. You see the highlight clips there. When somebody's in their face, it doesn't matter. You try and play up on them at the line, it doesn't matter. You get beat off the dribble, it doesn't matter. Like I just don't know how you stop those 2 as hot as they are. Which, by the way, also comes back to, I know, controversial take, a little bit of credit to Stephanie White, who's figured out how to a way to unlock 2 dynamic and incredible scorers. And a reminder that when Caitlin's healthy, as she now is, this is the version of Caitlin. Like, how much of the time did we spend at the beginning of the year talking about the back and wondering what her health was going to look like long term? When you get a Caitlin Clark that is this unstoppable, that's also flanked by a Kelsey Mitchell that is every bit as unstoppable, that just creates nightmares. So, Caroline, best is hard for me because I think there's a lot of candidates. Hottest right now.
Come on, Fitz, just say it. Just say it. They're the best. Come on.
They're the most unstoppable. They're the most unstoppable. Okay, maybe you got me on best. Maybe you got me on best. Certainly, Indiana is playing championship caliber basketball, though, and that's something you and I have waited all year. We've even talked about on this show. When would the basketball lead up to the conversation, like equal the conversation? When would they be as good a basketball team as they are a conversation piece? I think right now, Caroline, they are.
And it's not just Kelsey Mitchell and Caitlin Clark, which I just said I think they're the best duo in the WNBA right now. It's also the supplementary production that they're getting outside of those 2 and outside of the big 3, including Aaliyah Boston. Sophie Cunningham last night dropped 13 points. She was 3 of 3 from beyond the arc. And Sophie Cunningham talked last night, 13 points off the bench, might I add. Sophie Cunningham talked to the media last night in Toronto and said, the others and the others being everybody not named Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Aaliyah Boston. She said, we just do what we're asked to. We step up and we fill in wherever we need it and wherever we can. And we saw that with KK Timpson when she dropped 20 points against Atlanta last weekend. There is just this understanding of everybody knows their role. There's a certain sense of unselfishness with this Fever team, that you know that if you are not part of the big three, then your job is to help the big three or take wide open shots when you can get them, or just contribute in any way that you can. Because KK Timpson last night, 8 points, definitely a far cry from her big, career high 20 that she had against Atlanta, but she still had 2 steals. She still had 7 rebounds, 5 of them defensive rebounds. And that's so much of what I've said about the championship formula about this Fever team, is just get a couple of stops and create more opportunities for this offense whenever you can. KK Timpson was doing that with her defense last night against Toronto. So even though at times last night it probably got a little bit more interesting and a little bit more uncomfortable than you would have thought, with Indiana having as high as a 17-point lead, they still found a way to win. And in basketball, in the postseason, you just have to find a way to win, even when your backs are up against the wall, and when you're on the road, and when you're in a building with no air conditioning, which is crazy.
Yeah,
it's August.
Still trying to figure that one out. Come on, Canada. All right. Still trying to figure out exactly what to make of one of the other big results we saw last night. Angel Reese, Alicia Gray, Ryan Howard all dropped more than 20. Atlanta goes into Vegas and thumps the Aces. Just absolute 97-82. I didn't think it was as close as that score either. Becky Hammond ejected after the game. Alicia Gray said, quote, if we continue playing like this, this is championship basketball. More of an impressive win to you by the Dream, or concerning loss for the Aces?
I think this is a more impressive win for the Dream, in my opinion. Dream haven't won in Vegas since 2022. And I know that this version of Atlanta is a much different looking version than maybe we've seen in past iterations, but still there is something to be said about getting kind of that past that mental hurdle of going on the road, a cross country road trip against the reigning champions and a team that looks like they have a championship ceiling again this season. There is something that getting that kind of monkey off your back a little bit just does for your team, that sense of confidence that can instill in you. And you're seeing you had 4 players in double digits. We talk about big threes. Atlanta has one of the best of them. Alicia Gray and Ryan Howard, who are both good for 20 plus points a game. Angel Reese, who had yet another double-double. It feels like she rolls out of bed and just automatically has a double-double, including 21 points. So you're getting that kind of offensive production. You're seeing how this team can kind of click on all cylinders. And you're also getting Jordan Canada back into the fold. I know we talk about the big three, and that's exactly what they have in Atlanta, but what Jordan Canada does, her ball movement, creating opportunities for the big three, and her scoring, they didn't have Jordan Canada against the Fever, so getting her back into the fold, I think, shows how much of a difference that she can make. But it is concerning for the Aces. I mean, you cannot win very many basketball games against playoff teams when you have one member of your starting 5 putting up 0 points, when you're only getting 8 points off the bench. I know Asia Wilson is a literal Martian, but even the best player in the sport needs some help every once in a while.
I'm past the point of concerned now when it comes to the Aces. And I'm the one that's been saying over and over and over again, they're the Aces. They always figure it out. Nope. This year, they don't always figure it out. More often than not this year, they've been beat when they play good teams. They've feasted on bad ones. That's not going to help you in the playoffs. This version of the Aces so far hasn't found that fire and that extra gear that last year's version had. Last year's version of the Aces, we all remember, took a thumping like we'd never seen and then went on a historic streak on their way to a title. I keep thinking that they're going to do the same thing, that light switch is going to go off. But I watched them last night get beat up. I watched them get physically taken over and over and over again by a team that was tougher and a team that wanted it more. So at this point, what I have to do, I feel like the only responsible way to cover the Aces, as difficult as this is to leave their resume behind for a minute. Stop talking about what they did last year or the year before or what we've seen them do in the past and start talking about what we're seeing them do right now. This version of the Aces is not consistent enough. This version of the Aces does not move the ball well enough. This version of the Aces some nights looks like they just get abused, and that's not something we're used to seeing. This version of the Aces has not found the toughness, the grit, the energy, the definition of what's made them who they are, I'm past concerned. I'm at that point where I'm teetering. I am teetering on the edge of, I just don't think this team has whatever it is, whatever that it factor is. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they show it. But Caroline, so far, they haven't shown that to us at all. Now, frankly, coming off a night where Caitlin scores 20 plus in a win, Asia loses at home, the odds makers took a little notice. Caitlin's MVP odds shifted up. They went to, or actually shifted down. They went shorter, however you want to see this. She entered 33 plus 3,300 and now is plus 2,500. So we're saying there's a chance. Caitlin's next 2 games on the road, Dallas and New York. Are we looking at a movement here to get Caitlin to the MVP?
Those pesky little odds makers, they're always paying attention, aren't they? They're always working overtime. It is still a long shot if you look at the odds there. Even with a pretty massive leap last night, I believe she was plus 3,300 going into that game against the Tempo. She's still a far cry from Asia Wilson, who is an overwhelming favorite, and Olivia Miles, who's right behind her. But there's still a lot of basketball left to be played, and there is ground that you can make up. So sure, you have Dallas and you have New York coming up, but those are also, Dallas right now is in the 8th seed of the WNBA postseason picture, which is crazy how much shuffling can happen just in the span of a couple of games. There is not a lot of difference. There's not a lot of margin for error between like that 5 and 8 spot. So I don't think necessarily those games are going to tip her over the edge in one overwhelming way or another. It does help, though, that those are primetime games. Let's not forget that these are humans voting on this award. So games that everybody can watch and everybody can see. That creates conversation, that creates, at least visibility for the common fan or just that average person that might have a WNBA MVP vote. So those things matter. But I think it really comes down to the games late in this season. At the end of September, the Fever have a back-to-back, one at home, one on the road against the Lynx. One of those games is on ESPN. One of those games is on USA. So 2 primetime cable games. All eyes are going to be on those games. I expect these 2 teams, even at the end of the September, to be at the top of the WNBA standings. I think those games are going to be have the capability to shift the MVP odds more drastically one way or another than maybe these upcoming games against Dallas and New York.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, your point is an important one. It is still humans. For anyone that doesn't know, it's a group of national sports writers and broadcasters that have the WMVP vote. It's voted on a tiered system, a point system. So certainly you'd have to get through the human element to actually get to the spot. Now, I'm interested to see where the voters lay out of this. Also, I think it's wildly important to make sure that we stress here, there are 3 very deserving candidates right now for MVP. It's not clear cut. We're not sitting here in a world where all of a sudden it's clear that Caitlin is the MVP and Olivia is not, or Asia is not. So there is some nuance to the conversation. We'll get back to the WNBA a little later throughout the course of today's show. Don't forget, from talking W's to getting W's in fantasy football, Yahoo loves our 29 days of fantasy, and it continues. Yahoo Fantasy Ultra is here. Brand new tier of Fantasy Plus, stacked with features, including an all-new draft kit from from Yahoo's analysts, a 150-page draft playbook, and a draft strategy lab. Check out Fantasy Ultra at yahoofantasy.com today. It's simple. You want to win your league? Hang out with yahoofantasy.com. Coming up next, we'll get into controversy.
Losing Laramie Tunsil, top 3 left tackle in the NFL, it's a huge deal because now this offensive line goes from interesting to maybe bad. Now, Brandon Coleman, who's my X factor for them, he did start all of 2024, his rookie year, and they were one of the best offenses in the NFL that season. Yeah. If you want to be this more, under center, deep drop back passing game, you're going to need your protection to be really good, as opposed to like we're in the gun and getting it out in the horizontal raid with Cliff Kingsbury. Who there tempts you the most, and is it Drake May, because your heart is aflutter still for Drake May?
It is Drake May. If you draft Drake May, you ask yourself, are we still on the front 9 with AJ Brown? Is he going to win the breakup with the Eagles? Is Romeo Doubs, did they overpay for him and overslot him, or is he really an impact player? It's going to hurt me when I don't draft Drake May this year. I don't think I'm going to do it very often. I may not even do it at all.
The thing with Derrick Henry, which I really admired with him with the Titans for sure. You see 22 on the field, you know he's getting the ball. You know Derrick Henry's coming. Derrick Henry was the focal point of that offense for years. But guess what? Still, nobody stopped him. With Derrick Henry, yeah, he's another year older, but he does not look another year closer to falling off. He does not look another year closer to slowing down. And he seems like he can go for as long as he wants to.
Darian Mensah was not the only player who left Duke that day to go to Miami. His best receiver, Cooper Barkate, went with him. He was the best receiver in the Ivy League at Harvard in 2024. He graduates from Harvard. He hops in the portal, goes to Duke, and has 1,100 receiving yards at Duke last year. Well, now he goes to Miami.
Harvard to Miami. How can you not love this sport right now? This is fantastic.
Roger Goodell has, quote, no doubt there will be NFL teams outside the U.S. Quote, at some point there will be NFL teams outside the U.S. I have no doubt that this will happen one day. He said that on television in Germany. So, Caroline, think he's serious here? And is this even a good idea?
I definitely think he's serious. It has been so clear by some of the objectives by the NFL over the last several years that that is Roger Goodell's priority. And that is probably what Roger Goodell wants his legacy to be whenever he steps away as commissioner of the NFL. He wants his legacy to be the commissioner that took the NFL international. And he's done a really good job of it. I mean, this year we have 9 different international games in 7 different countries, including the first one ever in Australia. We have the international player program where, players from all over the world, even if they don't have football experience, can learn about football, learn the game, try out. I mean, look at Jordan Mailata. He didn't have football experience, and now he's one of the best left tackles in the NFL. And you have so much more fandom internationally for the NFL. You have so much more viewership internationally in the NFL. I actually saw an article on ESPN.com, and this came out last February. So it's been over a year. But from 2024 to 2025, the searches for NFL England went up 250% just in the span of a single year. So international popularity, international visibility, international involvement is all off the charts under the tutelage of Roger Goodell. The NFL has largely gone international. The only way that the NFL hasn't, though, is actually having a team internationally. I don't think, though, right now, that having international expansion is a good idea for a few reasons. One, I don't think you can have one international team without having multiple international teams. It depends on where it is. Let's just say, for example, if it's in Mexico City, that's a different story. That's a much more accessible city than, let's say, a London. I think London makes the most sense to expand because there are already 2 stadiums. You already have NFL ownership represented in London. Shad Khan, the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, is it Wembley Stadium? He owns one of the stadiums and owns a soccer team in London. So you already have a presence there. But you can't have one London team. You have to have 2 London teams, if not an entire European division. So that's a much different undertaking than just expanding for 1 or 2 more teams. I also think you're going to have a really difficult time with the logistics of all of that. Visas, money, compensation, getting free agents on board with joining these international teams to sign up for paying the taxes to be an American citizen and maybe maintain a residence in the US, but also be making money overseas. You have to entice free agents to sign up for flying across the pond 7, 8, 9 times throughout the course of a season, if not even more in the postseason. That's a lot of wear and tear on your body. That's a lot of time in transit. We already know that players and coaches kind of roll their eyes at international games. They're not going to do it publicly, but you and I both know, we all know they don't want to play these international games. And that's once, in the 49ers case, twice in the course of a season. You're going to sign up for that to be your entire life and your entire career for a season, if not seasons. That's just a really big hurdle that I don't quite think the NFL is ready for.
This concept for Roger Goodell to come out and say, this is going to happen, I'm sure of it, is as Ringling Brother Barnum and Bailey as we've had in modern sports. He's leading a circus show and he's selling something without any real logistics behind it. All right. So, number one, right now, the NFL already has their cake and they can eat it too. They have an international series that most expect is going to expand to every single week. So, every single week, there's going to be an international game at whatever, 9 a.m. Eastern time that we'll all be able to watch in the mornings. Now, the benefit that has is by not being a permanent team, you can sell to a group of fans every single year. Oh, Ravens fans, you want to go to Rio de Janeiro this year to watch a football game? Hell yeah, that sounds like an awesome party. Let's go. That's a big part of how they get some of those stadiums to be full. It's not always necessarily that there's a local draw in some of these cities. It's that there's an international draw to going to check out a city. I've always wanted to go to Paris. Honey, let's go. And we're going to watch a football game. Like, this all is easy. It makes it much easier to sell everybody across the board. But then also the logistics that you speak of. Caroline, I was lucky enough to tour the world in my career in music. And I'll tell you, nothing prepares you for the complications of taxes when you play in other countries. I've played in all of them. And fun fact, if you make over $10,000 in any country outside the United States, you have to pay taxes in those states. The number of hours and dollars spent just figuring out what to do for a musician that was barely making six figures but touring the world. That was my experience. Now imagine making millions of dollars per game and understanding that because you are technically a resident of, let's say, the state of California, you're paying your state California income taxes. But also on top of that, you now have to pay the taxes for every one of the games that you played in your home stadium in London. And those taxes can be in the 30-40% range on top of everything else. This is why international is a problem in every sport. I'm lucky enough to have a close friend that played for Toronto in Major League Baseball. And one thing they had to negotiate in his deal was what type of money they were being paid in, which country was actually paying, because the conversion rate was so different. Now do that for an NFL team with a salary cap. They don't have that in Major League Baseball. What are you going to do when you're establishing a salary cap for a football team where your guys that are living there for 7 months a year are living on pounds but being paid in dollars? These are all things that Roger Goodell hasn't offered a single clue of a solution for, because he can't. He could just stand in front of a microphone and say, well, gosh, golly, we're going to play internationally. How? It is going to take international governments getting involved when you're talking about the amount of money, the amount of time, the amount of jobs, the amount of people. Caroline, it's easy for Roger to say, I'm sure it's going to happen, because there's nobody in the world that will sit across from him and hold him accountable with the most important question. How? How are you actually going to do it? I don't believe Roger Goodell has a single actual applicable answer to those questions.
Well, how's not fun? How
No,
is
that's
not
fair.
a fun question
fair.
to answer? It's fun to say, oh my God, we're getting a football team. Oh my goodness. I love to go buy a jersey. It's fun to drum up interest for where will the international team be? Oh, the NFL has just got bigger. The NFL owns everything, and now they're going to gobble up Europe too. So that's the fun part about it. And that is part of Roger Goodell's job, is to be the face of this league and to drum up interest for this league. The how, those are all, crossing T's and dotting of I's. Those are not fun questions to answer, but necessary questions to answer if this is actually going to become a reality. But I think I've been around sports in general long enough to know that sometimes when people say things, they aren't telling you, oh, this might happen. They're telling you this is going to happen. I'll never forget Kirk Herbstreit getting up on college game day saying, oh, maybe Texas and Oklahoma could join the SEC. And we all thought, no, that's crazy. Sure enough, a couple months later, it's leaked. Texas and Oklahoma are joining the SEC. Kirk Herbstreit wasn't saying, wow, this might be a crazy idea. Kirk Herbstreit was saying, prepare yourselves because it's happening. I think that's exactly what Roger Goodell is doing. He's not just saying that just for funsies. Roger Goodell is way too smart of a business person, and the NFL is way too big of a conglomerate for Roger Goodell to just say things all willy-nilly. It's inevitable. International expansion for the NFL is inevitable. It's not going to happen next year, might not happen in the next 5 years, might not even happen in the next decade. But I think what Roger Goodell is telling us is this is inevitable. It is going to happen. And any kind of hurdles that may exist, financial hurdles, logistical hurdles, because believe me, I'm sure there are a crazy amount of logistical hurdles with travel, free agents, like I mentioned, currency, citizenship, visas. Are there even enough international NFL fans to fill a stadium? All of those things are questions that I have and you have, we probably all share. But Raj Goodell is saying those are all simply just speed bumps along the way. And they're not going to be barriers to entry for us into international expansion. Because if there's one thing that I know about the NFL, any questions, any concerns, any potential, roadblocks along the way, don't worry about them. Because the NFL is a big enough of a conglomerate that all of those things can just be taken care of. If there are dollars to be made and revenue to be generated, the NFL is going to do it.
I do think that there's a cheat code answer to this that makes it a lot more simple. We've talked about London, or everybody wants to talk about places like Australia, Paris, Rio, all these places. Mexico City, Toronto, those are two easily executable. Toronto's already used to dealing with professional sports in the NBA, Major League Baseball that are largely centered in the U.S., so they have some example there. Mexico City, easy to get to for everybody involved in travel. This is the longest period. The NFL hasn't expanded since 2002. This is the longest period in league history they've ever gone without adding teams. I could see a world where they expand to Mexico City and Toronto, which is international. It fulfills what Roger's telling us will be fulfilled without fulfilling it in a way that actually crosses oceans to do it. It's a lot easier to figure out the travel. It's somewhat easier to figure out the financials in that process. I wonder if maybe that is an international. And it also provides Roger Goodell with the other thing that right now is always important: leverage for whatever team decides they want a new stadium paid for by their city from somewhere. You won't do it? Mexico City will. You always have to have a city that you can dangle out there to force everybody to buy your stadiums. So I feel like Mexico City and Toronto could be, to your point, the cheat code he's actually referencing, even if he's referencing it on a television channel. In Germany, he does it by, as a former attorney, picking his words closely by saying, or intentionally by saying, international expansion, which would still include Mexico and Canada.
Those are international countries. It is fair to say, and I'm with you, that feels so much more palatable. Mexico City is not a far flight away. Toronto is so easily accessible. My only pushback to Toronto, though, is we have 7 different countries represented in international games this year. None of them are Canada. And we haven't seen an NFL game in Canada in over a decade. I do think that's for a reason. You look at Estadio Azteca in Mexico City, that has a 90,000 person capacity. You look at Estadio Jalisco in Guadalajara, that's about 60,000 people. The Toronto Argonauts, I just looked up a random stadium in Canada, and that just felt like the most likely one. That capacity is 28,000 people. So there are already 2 stadiums that can be used as NFL stadiums that already exist, 2 of them in Mexico, whereas Toronto just feels a little bit more like a far-fetched idea because there's not already a stadium that's built. You're going to have to find someone that can invest, $3 billion into a new stadium? Because I think we can agree there's not going to be just one international expansion team. There has to be 2, just for the numbers to make sense.
Yeah, they're going to keep everything even, and 2, even create some complications, because right now every division has 4 teams. I don't imagine that they love a world where some divisions have 5 teams, some divisions have 4 teams.
True.
So again, another complication that Raj doesn't have to acknowledge right now, because nobody's going to get to actually ask him the how. And when he does answer, he'll answer, without actually answering. He's brilliant with it. All right, we'll get back to Roger Goodell, I'm sure. But coming up next, let's get to the Steelers. They have a big season coming up. Our buddy, Urinating Tree, joins us next. We'll get his thoughts.
We're going to talk about Alan Graves, who looks like a hit of a draft prospect for the Toronto Raptors. Looks sensational, man.
I thought the shot was there. You talked about the percentage, but also most of the shots were off of the catch, above the break. Just a good sign in terms of his positioning
And I think for the Toronto Raptors, a team that already has so much size, adding Alan Graves to this, it almost feels like some of those championship Raptors teams.
I can't predict the future, and I know that it's a long process, and it's not just my decision. But at the same time, I'm going to give the doctors and the coaches every single opportunity they can to let me be out there week one. And I don't want to miss that game because that's the team that won the division while we were gone. And you want to be out there and ready to go with your teammates. And so hopefully the doctors and the coaches give me the green light, and I'm able to go out there with my guys and compete against one of the best teams in the league.
They had to have better details on the back end because that was their greatest qualm last year, especially on third down. They were just a mess. Bad tackling, bad angles, slow to react. And this is a great stat from Next Gen Stats. First opportunity depth of tackle. So the first time they're able to tackle somebody, what's the depth of tackle? Theirs was the second highest in the league last year, 4.9. The Cowboys were the only ones higher. So they were late to react. So there was a perfect stat to match the eye test there. But that just has to get better. More than anything, that's what I'm focusing on with this defense.
I know people talk trash about the PFL and say, oh, because you're in the PFL, you're nothing. The level of fighters in the PFL are just as high as the people in the UFC. And the reason you don't understand that, the reason you don't think so is because you're a casual. You're not a true MMA fan. You don't understand the game as much as you hope or you think you do. If I ever gave a damn about what somebody thought up until this moment, I would not be the champion.
Highest point differential versus a single franchise. You see this in the NFL. The Steelers have owned both the Browns and the Bengals throughout the course of the year. For more on this, we bring on our resident Steelers fan, superstar YouTuber, Urinating Tree. Historically, the Steelers have had the Browns number, my friend. Welcome back, by the way. Always love seeing you. But also, they've been crushing the Bengals, too. So, do you like Pittsburgh's chances of winning the AFC North this season better than you like Cincinnati's?
Ooh, that's a tough call because my question is with Cincinnati, will they ever get their defense fixed? Because they always talk, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Chase Young, the elite offense. But you have to remember their defense, especially last year, was generationally bad. So if they can get that fixed, I think they'll have a chance. But I'm personally thinking, once again, if Baltimore can get their act together, I know last year felt like an aberration. I think they have the best chance of winning this division again. I think the Steelers will have a solid shot, especially with their balance throughout the roster. Question is, will Aaron Rodgers still have anything left in the tank at 42? But I think, as I said, if I were a betting man right now, I'd be Baltimore.
We just had the AFC North win totals up. Baltimore and Cincinnati are atop the division. I think that probably has a lot to do with the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's a consensus among Steelers fans? And if there is, what is it? Who was the scariest quarterback to play? Joe or Lamar?
For whatever reason, Lamar hasn't done all that well against the Steelers. I know there's been moments where he's had flashes. I know last year he had, that fourth quarter was phenomenal in week 18, but it's usually been scary because Burrow can dissect the defense when he's healthy pretty significantly. But at the same time, it happened against Joe Flacco last year too. You have to remember that. But I think as well, I would say probably Burrow is the one that usually scares us. I know Lamar, you have to remember because his feet, they can do things. But remember the thing with Lamar is he's been kind of hurt. I know he dealt with some nagging injuries last year, which may have hurt him. But I would say more or less depends on their durability. Burrow had a major injury last year. Lamar had a major injury as well. So I think that's the reason why the Steelers won the division, because a lot of the quarterbacks were hurt. A lot of things landed in place. So I think with health, it's kind of a coin flip. You can kind of sort of just debate either way, but I think both have their sort of strengths, but I believe Burrow is probably the better quarterback right now.
Does Aaron Rodgers have enough in the tank to compete with these quarterbacks we're talking about?
I think that's the question, because I know last year you saw flashes of brilliance. You saw that old Aaron Rodgers maneuvering in the pocket, Abeling, but the problem was against elite defenses, he just couldn't do anything. And I know a lot of people are going to say it's the Arthur Smith-like offense that held him back, but it was just like, it just looked old against the Chargers, the Bills, the Browns, the Texans in the playoffs last year. He couldn't get anything going. It got stuck in neutral. And I think that's going to be the question moving forward. It's why there were a few Steeler fans who were kind of like, they could take or leave him coming back. I know he was the best option available, so they were kind of stuck. But it's a 42-year-old quarterback. He was coming off a ruptured Achilles a couple years ago. And there's still a little bit of that maneuverability in him, but they got rid of the ball quickly. Like, in terms of their time to release from snap, they were one of the fastest in the league, if not the fastest. So I think it's going to be relatively the same. Just get the ball out quick, inside slants, go routes, just get it done quickly. And you'll have to adapt to that sort of thinking. I know their offensive line, they've invested a lot in it. 3 first-round picks in the last 4 years. Zach Frazier's a phenomenal offensive lineman. But the thing, too, is in terms of that age, like in your 40s, it's very hard to keep up that momentum. The only example we really have was Tom Brady, who was an absolute freak with his regimen and stretching mechanisms.
I know a lot of people felt like Tomlin for McCarthy was just kind of like swap and spit. But what do you know? What are you certain of that will be different in the McCarthy era versus the Tomlin era?
New wrinkles on offense. I know they've been talking a lot about just terms of at least getting some different sense of structure and feel of that offense. That was always a big complaint about Tomlin in his final years. You'd always have guys who just either ran high school offenses like Matt Canada or were just kind of intricate and like Arthur Smith, or you had guys who were kind of yes men's to Big Ben who were, Randy Fichtner. So you had guys who were just like, it felt like it was just bland and uninspired. The emphasis was the defense. Now the emphasis is going to be on the offense this time around. Will it work? I don't know. But the main thing is that you're going to get a new identity on this team. You'll still have the 3-4. You'll still have, the old Steeler way of just, emphasizing the inside linebackers, the edge rushers, and more or less just getting pressure on the quarterback, especially with that interior. But the thing is as well, you're going to have that sort of, I don't know if it's going to be an adaptation to the modern NFL, but you'll at least get a different look.
Part of that different look was Drew Aller in week 1 of the preseason, who impressed a lot of people. All right, what do you make of it? Is there something special there?
The thing is, I don't like to really put much stock in preseason because usually in the case of like Drew Aller, you're playing third string players. So I just want to I like what I see, but I want to pump the brakes a little bit because if you remember 4 years ago, or I believe it was 3 years ago, there was a quarterback from Pittsburgh who dominated in the preseason. He looked really good. He diced up that first-team Buffalo defense. His name was Kenny Pickett, and he did not do well. There are so many quarterbacks in the preseason who dominate and just don't do anything. Malik Cunningham was a big example a couple years ago. He looked really good, and now he's just on practice squads. You have guys, for example, now the big ones are Carson Beck, Haynes King. I mean, they could be something, but at the same time, with preseason, it's so hard to really get a read because you're more or less just trying out different things. You're trying out different players. Players are just more or less just getting a feel for it. And you're getting a sort of a watered down version of the NFL, but you're getting guys who do play hard. And there are examples of guys who have done well from preseason. Dak Prescott, for example. But I think at this time, it's one game. I just want to more or less just restrain myself from jumping at it right now. Because, I mean, it was kind of like the NFL equivalent of facing Villanova. I want to see more before I jump on that wagon.
What? You mean to tell me that all those Steelers fans out there that said we found our Aaron Rodgers succession plan or maybe jumped into conclusions after one preseason game? It's crazy.
There's still that sect that still believes in Will Howard. So I'm just going to put it out there.
Yep.
Find somebody who believes in you, like some Steelers fans believe in Will Howard. We all deserve that. I just pulled the Steelers schedule up in front of me. First 4 games of the season: Falcons, Pats, Bengals, Browns. Best and worst case scenario record-wise in those first 4 games.
Best case scenario, you're looking at about 3-1. I mean, you'll have probably 1 loss. Worst case scenario is you suffer an embarrassing loss to somebody like the Bengals or the Browns. If you lose to one of those teams, you're automatically in the hole in your division, and you can't have that. I remember you had a lot of luck in terms of the injuries, the situationships, and issues of all 3 teams throughout last year. But the Browns defense, I don't know if it's going to be as good as it was last year. You're losing Myles Garrett. You don't have Jim Schwartz manning that defense, but it's still a really good unit. The Bengals, once again, they've been trying to fix that defense come, well, hell or high water. And then it's just, you also have a healthy Burrow. You have that chemistry with Jamar Chase. You still have that emphasis there. But if you start the year 1-3 with the schedule you have to end that year, especially with the juggernauts you face, that's always been the issue with the Steelers. You need to start out strong. That's always been the thing there. But if you go, like, I'm looking at the schedule right now, if you go like sub 500 before the bye week, you're in trouble.
All right, so now I'm going to ask you to put the crystal ball out and take a look at the Browns. We were just talking about that matchup coming. What do you think of that team in your division this year? Who are the Cleveland Browns going to be?
I think it's going to be the same thing as last year. You have a really good defense. Jared Verse, he's not Myles Garrett, but he's a solid player. You have Mason Graham manning that interior, Carson Schlesinger as your middle linebacker, an elite cornerback room. You just paid Denzel Ward the big bucks. And Grant Delpit, too. But the question is, under center, who's going to be your guy? Pro Bowler Shadur Sanders? Is it going to be Dylan Gabriel, who, I mean, I saw him live when he played Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. He looked like he couldn't throw more than 15 yards. It was bad. And then you have Deshaun Watson, who, if he's your starter, after the shoulder issues, he did not look good 2 years ago. And you, on top of that, with 2 Achilles tears in the same leg, I don't know how to really gauge it. I know you have Quinshon Judkins. Is he going to be the same after his injury? He felt like he was running into a wall most days because they just jammed the box. You do have a couple good wide receivers. Denzel Washington, Casey Concepcion. Maybe Jerry Jeudy finds his hands somewhere in the lost and found. But my question is, especially with that overhauled offensive line, you're losing Joel Bitonio. You've lost Wyatt Teller. And you're going to be rebuilding that on the fly too. So it's going to be a year of transition. I don't know how crazy I am about Todd Monken as your head coach, but I just feel like it's just going to be the same thing.
Bringing it back to your team, who is one player that we as national media aren't talking enough about right now, but we will be come September, October, and November?
I would say the 2-headed monster of Rico Dowdle and Jaylen Warren. I think they're a phenomenal backfield. They're not going to get the premium bell cow reps, but I love Rico Dowdle in Carolina. I loved him in Dallas. I remember seeing a guy who could read holes effectively, was a great two-way player. I saw a guy who was able to just I was just clamoring for him in the offseason because I love what he is. I know losing Kenneth Gainwell sucks. I loved him too, but I think he's going to get real premium reps in Tampa Bay. But I think you've got a really good replacement in Dowdle. And Jaylen Warren, he just sees holes effectively. He's got great burst. He's got the ability to stretch out the backfield with his pass catching abilities. I think you have a really good 2-headed monster there. And let's not forget, Caleb Johnson, he hasn't done much, but maybe he finds his form from Iowa. But at the same time, I think those are going to be the guys you're going to be more or less paying attention to, as well as I would say Pat Freiermuth, because main thing is he's not going to have too many guys chomping at him to get reps. You might have Robert Tonyan, who's had a really good camp, but you don't have Jonnu Smith getting jet sweeps in the Arthur Smith special. Connor Hayward, you're not going to be getting reps from him. Darnell Washington, you're going to get a little bit from him as well. I think he's a huge fan favorite. I love watching that guy play, but I think those are the 3 guys I would say.
All right, so I love watching any sort of camp footage we can get right now. We are all sort of sucked into every single highlight we get. Not Steelers related, but one of the biggest highlights in the NFL yesterday. I don't know if you saw this Saints-Cowboys joint practice. Scott Steiner's son, Brock Rexsteiner, German suplex to Cowboys player. Tree, thoughts on the technique here? Look at this. Like, gets him. Oh, man, I mean, they're going at it. Oh, they are actually, like, they are going at it. What do we think of Scott Steiner's kid busting out some moves?
The thing is, if you're grabbing the helmet of a former NFL player who got suspended 6 games, which I'm just saying, you get what's coming to you. Look at that form. That is a former pro wrestler right there. I mean, and then the Saints player didn't even sell it that well. That was just pure power. And that is just the kind of stuff that makes training camp special. And not just that, there's a lot of testosterone, there's a lot of emotion and energy. A lot of guys trying to prove themselves. There's at least a couple big fights a year in training camp. This is just the biggest one. And just as FYI, Saints and Cowboys play each other on August 28th in the preseason. So expect a few more fights there.
That is electric. I love the form on it. Well done by him. Well done by you as always, my friend. You can follow him on Twitter, X at Urinating Tree. Check him out across YouTube, crushing it for the Steelers. And as always, we appreciate you, brother. Got to come back with us throughout the season. Hope it's a great one for you.
Absolutely, man. Thank you, man. It's a pleasure to be on as always. Thank you so much, guys.
Great stuff from him. It's going to be a wild year in that division. Coming up, most underrated college football players. We'll give you some names to watch coming next.
And that's really what we get into with the first quarterback I want to talk about, Sam Leavitt, transferring from Arizona State over to LSU. You're going to plug Sam Leavitt into that system with his ability to create outside of structure, his ability to get yards. On the ground, I think you're going to see him really outperform where he's being drafted right now. In a Power 4 only format, I have him as QB5 right now.
We're in a very, very bad time for the perception of college football. There's a fatigue point that people keep debating. Is it because of NIL? Is it because of portal? Is it because of what's going on in Congress? And I think the average consumer, and there's still more average consumers that listen and watch this show than there are industry insiders. There is a fatigue point with perpetual revision of the postseason format. People aren't as stupid as the individuals in this industry seem to think that they are.
Who is your breakout candidate for this year?
Kind of think Isaiah Likely with the New York Giants is a really good candidate this year. Kind of wide receiver room that could rotate a little bit and be useful players, but they don't, to me, have one dynamic. Even Fields, who I like, I don't know that he's gonna be like a dynamic guy that right off the bus, round 3 rookie, leads the team in targets. I think that could actually be Isaiah Likely. Tight ends on their second contracts have been good bets to make. I think Likely is a good bet to make this year.
How is your recovery going?
It's going good. You know, it's a long process. I think that's what I've learned throughout this entire thing. And so all I can do is be as great as I can be every single day. You know, it's tough. You have to just maximize that day and then slowly get better and better as the year goes on. And so just having the guys back and getting to be back on the football field will kind of get me going in order to get ready for the season.
Quarterback plug tweeted out the best quarterback in college football, ? SMU Kevin Jennings is a Heisman dark horse. Now, look at that vertical. I mean, just showing off there. Tons of highlights, 80 yards in the air. We were having a conversation as we were getting ready for today's show, talking about guys that maybe are flying under the radar. Caroline, you were the first to say his name, and I immediately said, you're right. Why are you high on Kevin Jennings?
Kevin Jennings is under the radar, and I don't necessarily know why. Let's not forget Kevin Jennings in SMU's first year in the ACC gets them to the conference title game and to the college football playoff. SMU was kind of back on the map, and SMU making that rise from the group of, then it was 5, now it's the group of 6. I don't know when it's going to be like the group of 17, but whatever, doesn't matter. When they made that ascension from group of 5 to power 4, SMU didn't have any sort of ramping up period, didn't have any sort of acclimation period. And largely it was because of Kevin Jennings. I mean, last season, Kevin Jennings was a top 10 passer in all of college football, and he was banged up. And he dealt with an injury last year that kind of hindered his ability to run the football. But in 2024, the year that SMU did get to the college football playoff, he ran the ball over 100 times. Like, he is a red zone threat. He can do anything that you ask of him. So even though we, as maybe college football fans and college football media, aren't talking about SMU or Kevin Jennings in the same way that we're talking about some of these big time college football powers, they know what the SMU knows what they have. Kevin Jennings has a building named after him. First ever active player to have a building named after him on campus in his time on campus, the Kevin Jennings Recovery Center. So I think that he's going to be one of those that maybe we forgot about after not having the same level of a college football playoff season that they had in 2024. But he is going to remind us very quickly that Kevin Jennings very much so is a Heisman candidate type of quarterback.
He's also a human highlight reel. And hear me out on this stuff. When we get human highlight reels for teams that aren't necessarily at the forefront of attention, it's easy to capture attention for individual players. My argument being Arch Manning, for example. Like, if we're asking who's going to end up being the most hyped quarterback in all of Texas, the state, throughout the course of college football, well, it's probably going to be Arch. But at the end of the day, because everybody has such opinions on Texas and everybody has such opinions on Arch, they're going to watch a lot of Arch. They're going to watch every second of every game and overanalyze every single throw. A lot of people that even talk about college football professionally aren't going to watch a ton of SMU until they have to. Mm-hmm. So really the way he's going to be Jennings is going to be consumed is through highlight packages that everybody sees. And then you're like, oh, man, I really do need to go back and rewatch that game. He's awesome. He's a human highlight reel that's going to put up highlight packages that's going to get him momentum in conversation. I think the underrated conversation is a really good one from him because in the beginning of the year, when people aren't consuming a ton of SMU, they will be consuming a ton of his highlights, and that's only going to help more benefit of the doubt for him. He gets a late season matchup at Notre Dame. Caroline, I think that there's a real opportunity for him to take the nation by storm because of the way the schedule plays out, because of the attention SMU does and doesn't get, and because of that late season game in the cold against Notre Dame.
And let's not forget, last year, Kevin Jennings was a big reason why SMU beat Miami. I don't know how many people were really keeping an eye on Miami after some of those earlier season losses. I think we all kind of wrote Miami off a little bit. Maybe not the entire college football world was super tuned into that game, but SMU last year beat Louisville, who was a really good team in the ACC, beat Miami, who found themselves eventually in the national championship game. SMU just suffered a couple of close losses against teams that, frankly, they shouldn't have lost to. SMU had zero business beating Miami and then losing to Cal, but, they did. So I think that because of those uncharacteristic losses, they just went off of all of our radars. But even in a year that they didn't live up to what they did in 2024, they still had some massive wins on their schedule. And Kevin Jennings wasn't 100% last season. So he comes back this year. He is 100%. Year 5 in college football. You have a bunch of returners on the offensive line. You do have a lot of continuity around Kevin Jennings. I think it's a recipe for success, especially in a schedule where it is not a total murderer's row, but you have a few of those marquee matchups like that late season matchup with Notre Dame that everyone is going to be tuned into. Those kind of games matter to get the attention nationally.
Let me give you another name while we're talking about quarterbacks that maybe are a little underrated going into the season. Auburn's quarterback Byron Brown, I'm going to bring into this conversation. You mentioned fifth year. As long as we've worked together talking about college football, I love quarterbacks that have played a lot of football, a lot of seasons, right? So The funny thing is he's going into his 5th season, but 2 of those 4 seasons he's played so far, he's been really limited. In his freshman year, only 4 games. In his junior year, only 6. I want to take a look at his 2 full seasons at South Florida at the time, where in his sophomore year, he completed about 65% of his passes, 26 touchdowns, 11 picks. Then last year, 66% of his passes, 28 touchdowns, 7 picks. Now you bring that to an offensive staff at Auburn that should have some creativity for him. I think there's a real opportunity here to take the world a little by storm for somebody that maybe we're not paying enough attention to. Again, it's that 5th year element to it that I really like. And I think he's shown us on the field who he is from an accuracy standpoint, from a touchdown to interception ratio standpoint, from a consistency standpoint. You add that to Auburn, that's going to put fuel on the fire of hype for Brown. I like him as somebody that maybe we're not paying enough attention to.
I love this pick by you because we're not paying enough attention to Byron Brown. I don't think he's a Heisman contender like I think Kevin Jennings is, just because I don't think Auburn is going to win enough football games for him to be a legitimate Heisman contender. But last season at South Florida, as a quarterback, he had over 1,000 rushing yards, in addition to 28 touchdowns, which was top 15 in college football last season. 28 touchdowns, only 7 interceptions. Like, Byron Brown is the true definition of a dual threat quarterback. So he transfers over from South Florida to Auburn. Why is that important? Because his head coach, Alex Golesh, got the job at Auburn. So he has that continuity with the offensive system. He has that continuity with his head coach. He has a bunch of players and weapons that he had out South Florida that are also transferring over to Auburn. Jeremiah Coger was one of the highest recruited wide receivers in the transfer portal, a 4-star wide receiver in the transfer portal. He comes over from South Florida to Auburn as well. I think that Auburn in general is incredibly underrated. Not because I think they're going to win the SEC or they're going to get to the college football playoff, but because I think Auburn is going to be a really interesting and fun football team to watch. Alex Golesh, the head coach at Auburn, let's not forget, he was the offensive coordinator at Tennessee in 2022, when Tennessee had the #1 offense in the country, that Hendon Hooker, Cedric Tillman, Jalen Hyatt year. So I think you're going to see some offensive firepower from this Auburn team. And also, South Florida last year, they went on the road and beat Florida in the Swamp. I know Florida wasn't a very good team last year, but South Florida beating Florida on the road, that's a big deal, no matter if Florida made a bowl game or not. So Byron Brown himself is underrated. Auburn as a team, I think, is wildly underrated.
You want to give me another player that you have under the... I'm really just trying to force you to say one name, the best name in all of college football. We all need to hear it. Give me one more player.
It's Jaron Kiave-Sangapolatele, the quarterback at Cal. JKS for those who are uncultured. Jaron Kiave-Sangapolatele for those for the real ones out there. Jaron Kiave-Sangapolatele last year, as a true freshman at Cal, was a top 20 passer in the country. I think every quarterback needy coach across America was picking up the phone and calling him to see if he would enter the transfer portal because of what he did, and because there's also a pretty good recent history with the Cal to transfer portal quarterback pipeline, obviously with Fernando Mendoza. I think Jaron Kiave-Sangapolatele is really prepped and ready for a true breakout. I mean, he had a great year last year as a true freshman. So he has a full year of college football under his belt. Tosh Lupoy comes in as the new head coach at Cal. He played at Cal. He believes in this football program. So I think that Cal is going to be one of those, a team that we probably haven't paid attention to a whole lot, but that man right there is going to force us to pay attention to them.
Jaron Kiave-Sangapolatele. Did I do that right? Is that good?
It's close.
Okay, I'll take it. I'll go. Give it to me one more time. One more time.
Jaron Kiave-Sangapolatele.
Okay, well done. That is.
Thank you.
That, look, we're going to say that name as often as we can.
If you can do DGO Anglele, you can do Jaron Kiave-Sangapolatele.
Yeah, that is well done by you. Expert work from Caroline. Speaking of experts, we're going to bring in some expertise next. Linda Cohn going to join us. She is absolutely crushing it, and it's time to get her thoughts on all things W and more coming up next.
Losing Laramie Tunsil, top 3 left tackle in the NFL, it's a huge deal because now this offensive line goes from interesting to maybe bad. Now, Brandon Coleman, who's my X factor for them, he did start all of 2024, his rookie year, and they were one of the best offenses in the NFL that season. Yeah. If you want to be this more, under center, deep drop back passing game, you're going to need your protection to be really good, as opposed to like we're in the gun and getting it out in the horizontal raid with Cliff Kingsbury. Who there tempts you the most, and is it Drake May because your heart is a flutter still for Drake May?
It is Drake May. If you draft Drake May, you ask yourself, are we still on the front 9 with AJ Brown? Is he going to win the breakup with the Eagles? Is Romeo Doubs, did they overpay for him and overslot him, or is he really an impact player? It's going to hurt me when I don't draft Drake May this year. I don't think I'm going to do it very often. I may not even do it at all.
The thing with Derrick Henry, which I really admired with him with the Titans for sure. You see 22 on the field, you know he's getting the ball. You know Derrick Henry's coming. Derrick Henry was the focal point of that offense for years. But guess what? Still, nobody stopped him. With Derrick Henry, yeah, he's another year older, but he does not look another year closer to falling off. He does not look another year closer to slowing down. And he seems like he can go for as long as he wants to.
Darian Mensah was not the only player who left Duke that day to go to Miami. His best receiver, Cooper Barkate, went with him. He was the best receiver in the Ivy League at Harvard in 2024. He graduates from Harvard. He hops in the portal, goes to Duke, and has 1,100 receiving yards at Duke last year. Well, now he goes to Miami.
Harvard to Miami. How can you not love this sport right now? This is fantastic.
A'ja Wilson's 5th MVP loading. Wilson has the shortest odds to extend her streak of most MVPs in WNBA history. You see it there. You've got Olivia Miles behind her and Caitlin Clark behind her. You know our next guest is a longtime former SportsCenter host, ESPN legend, now absolutely crushing it on YouTube with the Linda Cohn Show. Congrats on all that success. Linda joins us now. Even after a tough loss last night, A'ja still the heavy favorite there. But do you think Caitlin has any chance to go on a wild run and steal the WNBA MVP this season?
Yeah, I've been on that pedestal at that podium praising Caitlin Clark. And if I had a vote, I would vote for her because nobody touches the ball more than her. The offense goes through her. I saw a stat that was remarkable in WNBA history. She creates either with her assists or with her scoring 40.5 points. 40.5 points is the average of an Indiana Fever game. That's how much she impacts the game. 4 straight player of the week. Her and Kelsey Mitchell, the best tandem in the WNBA. I would put Kelsey Mitchell, if it's not Caitlin Clark. I don't know why Kelsey Mitchell isn't right there also with some candidates for MVP, but Caitlin does so much. And what does the word mean? Most valuable. I know A'ja Wilson, my goodness, of course, we know what she does. She's a machine. The stats are remarkable. She leads in scoring average and rebounding average and all of that. We get that. She's a dominant player. She's one of the all-time greats. But there's valuable in there. It's not most stats, per player. It's most valuable player. And I know Jason and Caroline, we have this conversation all the time. We do this in other sports, don't we too? The meaning of valuable, the meaning of production. What's the difference? I say Caitlin Clark, she should be right up there with A'ja Wilson. Olivia Miles, great rookie season. She's a rookie. She's not going to win league MVP.
I love how every year when the MVP conversation comes around, we all turn into Merriam-Webster and give our own definition of value. But there is no doubt that Caitlin Clark is wildly valuable, not just to her team, but to the WNBA as a whole. If we want to fast forward to the end of Caitlin Clark's career, how many MVPs do you think that she would have collected throughout her entire career?
You know what, Caroline? I don't care how many. I'm actually not a big person with individual awards. I can't stand them. You do that with NFL. I mean, look at Aaron Rodgers. 1 Super Bowl win. He's got 4 or 5 MVP awards. Great. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. To me, it's winning when it matters most. Yeah, I know right now. If you would say to me, how many championships do you think Caitlin Clark is going to win? Well, that's a different conversation before she retires. I think at least 2. Multiple championships. I just think there's a lot going on outside and the voters and, all the minutia that surrounds Caitlin Clark. But let's face it, look what she does. I mean, I said this 5 weeks ago that the Indiana Fever are America's team. Everywhere they go, they have the opposing team has to move their games to a bigger arena. We saw it last night with Toronto. Toronto Tempo, losers of 10 in a row, usually if they're lucky, fill 8,000 where they normally play. That's all it seats. They move this game to where the Toronto Maple Leafs play, the 20,000 seat. And it was sold out. Why? Because of Caitlin Clark, because of Sophie Cunningham, and because of the rest of this very exciting brand of basketball that, kudos to Stephanie White. She coaches and she is really kind of now focused on supporting her players these last few games. And they're on a great run, 12 wins in the last 15 games, 5 straight wins. So all of it is peaking at the right time and that's, I think, a big factor when you vote for MVP. But I'm sure because the voters are who they are and what they're trying to protect, which I don't understand either, she's not going to win. I just want to add one more thing, which I talked about on my show. The WNBA guys should take a page from the NBA. Back in the day when Bird and Magic really saved the league, broke into the league, they were everywhere. There are commercials everywhere, everything, the NBA focused on them. They didn't ignore them to raise up other players like Ewing and Barkley and this kind of thing. Their philosophy is let's grow the game through Magic and Bird. And then Michael Jordan came along. Let's grow the game through Michael Jordan. And organically, the league grew. And guess what happened? All these other players, the Karl Malones, the John Stocktons, whoever I'm throwing out there, got bigger through the superstars. I don't understand. I hope it's changing now that the league, the WNBA, should grow the game through Caitlin Clark. You're not knocking the other players by putting her on the pedestal that she deserves right now.
So with all the conversation that there is around Caitlin all the time, if she were to take the Fever to a title this year, how would that change the tone of the conversations with Caitlin?
Yeah, I hope it does, but I don't think it would dramatically. I think the conversation would be like, Jason Carolina would be like, yeah, she's so talented. We know what a great scorer she is. We know what a great playmaker she is. Are we really surprised that she brought out the best in her teammates? And I think it would be that kind of tone. But then we went, let's look ahead to next year and let's see who else can do it. And that's great because I say that's a perfect formula. That would be wonderful. Give the flowers to Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever for accomplishing something that going into the season, nobody thought they would be a championship contender and winning a championship if that does happen. And then through Caitlin and this excitement for the league, then you're building up the other players. And nobody is knocking Asia Wilson and what she has accomplished. She's the best player in the league, skill-wise, stats-wise. But Caitlin Clark is the most impactful and valuable in my mind.
I think that's a valuable lesson that a lot of WNBA fans need to learn is you can promote and celebrate the accomplishments of one player without diminishing the accomplishments of another. But there can be multiple superstars. But you've been very vocal in the way that the WNBA just cannot seem to get out of its own way when it comes to promoting Caitlin Clark. The WNBA can't seem to get out of its own way for a lot of reasons. But there was one game promotional poster on social media that went absolutely viral. Ion used Lexi Hull and Raven Johnson's photos when promoting a Dallas Wings Indiana Fever game. What did you make of that?
This was why I went crazy on the Linda Cohn show a few days ago. And I had to make that point that you just kind of reaffirmed, Caroline. There are ways to do it. Don't go out of your way and create storylines that aren't there. No offense to Lexi Hull. She's one of the team's best defensive players on the Indiana Fever and one of the best defensive players, probably top 10 in the WNBA. But it's like, we can't have the philosophy like, oh, you know what? We're doing a lot of Caitlin Clark and she's in every commercial. Most people agree with me when I say my comments, but there are a few people that are like, what else do you want them to do, Linda? She's in every commercial. She's everywhere you look. Why punish her for that? What? And she's selling out. In Toronto last night, not only the 20,000, there were plenty of Indiana Fever fans that made the trip north of the border. And that's why I call them America's team, because every opposing arena has at least half fans of the Indiana Fever. So maybe the fans get it. The audience gets it. It's about time the league gets it. And I think little by little, I have seen, like last night with the national WNBA coverage, I did see more attention to Caitlin Clark. Woo! Yes. Amazing. So I think they're getting it. It's a process.
I can't imagine a Bills-Chiefs game where they just don't put Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes on the poster because they're bored with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, especially places like ESPN where we all know they pay attention to the metrics, and they always say talk about the biggest stars in the biggest sports. So seems like that's a pretty transparent thing for them today to do. Okay, so when we look at last night, Caitlin's longtime rival Angel Reese did battle with Asia Wilson in the Aces. Atlanta gets a convincing win on the road. Did that tell you more about Atlanta or Vegas this season?
Yeah, I think a couple of things there. Hey, kudos to Angel Reese. She had a great game. She really did. It was one of the best games I've ever seen her play in the league. And it was a nice bounce back from her disaster against Caitlin Clark in the Indiana Fever. I like to see that in a player. Block it out, go back on the court and do your thing. And that was great to see. So I love that individual performance by Atlanta. I love how they bounced back from an embarrassing loss the way they did, where they could have won it in regulation when Angel Reese missed that easy game-winning bucket. I think, Las Vegas was never the same, obviously, when Becky Hammon was thrown out of the game. I love Becky Hammon. What a great coach. What a great person. I love that fire. Yeah, that's what I was hoping, like Stephanie White for Indiana, have more of that fire. She's getting that fire now. I think people like to see it. But when she got tossed in that first quarter, and I love how she supports her players. Nobody supports her players better, especially publicly, than Becky Hammon. And she did so arguing for her best player, Asia Wilson, when Wilson looked like she was fouled and there was contact as she went in for a layup, had a few words. Becky didn't mince the words. She got the two technicals out of the game. So I think the Aces were never the same after that. So it's a one-off, Jace. We'll see how it goes. We still got a month to go in this season. And it's really remarkable. It really, truly is remarkable. People are not, I don't know. I don't know how you not watch it now. I mean, we don't got anything else going on. We just have NFL training camps in my mind, and that's easy to keep track of. But if you're looking for live, exciting action, this product has improved leaps and bounds.
It's an absolute blast, no doubt. We just had a picture of Angel Reese up on the screen. So I want to go from one LSU alumni to another LSU alumni who has been in the headlines recently, and that's Jaden Daniels, who sent a cease and desist letter to LSU to stop using his name, image, and likeness. It was reported that he was upset that LSU allowed a player to wear his former number 5. And Jaden Daniels has really since then kind of become a joke on social media. I saw the U.S. Department of the Interior was even making fun of Jaden Daniels in the number 5. How does Jaden Daniels come back from this in the court of public opinion?
Caroline, there are a lot of layers to this. When this first happened, I spoke about it on my show. I just thought, fire your lawyer. Who are these people that are giving you this advice? Move forward. This is a big season, I said, for Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders. Coming back from last year, only played about 4 games because of the injury. Obviously, his first year was remarkable, led his team to the NFC Championship game. We know how talented he is. We know he's the franchise quarterback. And here he was looking backwards. Why do you care? Why are you comparing yourself to Joe Burrow? I feel like some people are in his ear talking to him and gave him bad advice. So that's what I first said. Then when I realized that his mom is his business representative, here she is. I know her heart's in the right place. I get that. I'm a mom. I get that. But she gave her blessing for this. She's his business representative. She gave the blessing to have the lawyer file the cease and desist order and make her son a laughingstock. So while her intent was to protect her son, it ends up backfiring on her and him. And now he has a bigger hole to climb out of. How does he fix it, Caroline? The only way is to somehow, some way. First of all, I don't like his mom as a business rep. I know how. Why ruin this closeness that mother and son have by getting involved in that? I just don't understand that. That when you have more time, I'd be happy to share that. I talked about that on my show yesterday or the other day. But anyway, back to Jaden. Just go out for the Commanders. Focus on this team. This is a big season ahead. If you want to get paid, and I mean really paid, you need to get the Commanders back where they were in that rookie season of yours. And you have to be back at that. And you have to start thinking about yourself, being healthy, and helping the team around you be better.
All right, so before we get you out of here, we talked about the Commanders. Got to talk about your Giants. You're big Giants fans. How are we feeling? How are we feeling about the New York Football Giants this year?
Oh, yeah. Okay. You know what? Just because John Harbaugh is the coach now, it's going to be magical. On paper, they have a lot of talent. I hope OBJ makes the team. They cut Juju Schuster. They signed Najee Harris, the running back. I like that little depth. I don't know about Cam Scatterbo. I love that signing with Najee Harris because, we saw that viral video of Scatterbo going around. He didn't look good in some kind of drill that I saw. He says it's nothing. Everything's fine. I don't know. I'm worried about him. Jackson Dart, we know his second home is the medical tent, sadly. We need to stop that. He needs the protection. He needs to be smarter. Let's hope the John Harbaugh factor, the adult in the room, brings everyone together. I like what they have on defense. So we'll see. I think I've already picked the Cowboys to win the division because I like their upside and I like the addition of Von Miller with Rashawn Gary and that D-line. That defense is going to be so much better. They already have the offense. But I think the Giants are going to make the playoffs. I think they're going to steal a playoff spot. It's going to go down to the last week or two. But the NFC, there's playoff spots up for grabs in the NFC.
She is Linda Cohn. She's a legend, and she's crushing it. Over 20,000 subscribers, over 1 million views in less than a month on YouTube, The Linda Cohn Show. Congratulations on the continued success. There was never a doubt, but congratulations on the continued success, my friend. We appreciate you hanging out with us.
Oh, my pleasure. Jason, again, great to see you. Caroline, you're always crushing it. Thanks for having me.
It's great stuff from Linda, as always. 1 month from today will be great stuff for college football fans. Everybody will tell you about the drama next.
We're going to talk about Alan Graves, who looks like a hit of a draft prospect for the Toronto Raptors. Looks sensational, man.
I thought the shot was there. You talked about the percentage, but also most of the shots were off of the catch above the break. Just a good sign in terms of his positioning.
And I think for the Toronto Raptors, a team that already has so much size, adding Alan Graves to this, it almost feels like some of those championship Raptors teams.
I can't predict the future, and I know that it's a long process, and it's not just my decision. But at the same time, I'm going to give the doctors and the coaches every single opportunity they can to let me be out there week one. And I don't want to miss that game because that's the team that won the division while we were gone. And you want to be out there and ready to go with your teammates. And so hopefully the doctors and the coaches give me the green light, and I'm able to go out there with my guys and compete against one of the best teams in the league.
They have to have better details on the back end because that was their greatest qualm last year, especially on third down. They were just a mess. Bad tackling, bad angles, slow to react. And this is a great stat from Next Gen Stats. First opportunity depth of tackle. So the first time they're able to tackle somebody, what's the depth of tackle? Theirs was the second highest in the league last year, 4.9. The Cowboys were the only ones higher. So they were late to react. So there was a perfect stat to match the eye test there. But that just has to get better. More than anything, that's what I'm focusing on with this defense.
I know people talk trash about the PFL and say, oh, because you're in the PFL, you're nothing. The level of fighters in the PFL are just as high as the people in the UFC. And the reason you don't understand that, the reason you don't think so is because you're a casual. You're not a true MMA fan. You don't understand the game as much as you hope or you think you do. If I ever gave a damn about what somebody thought up until this moment, I would not be the champion.
September 19th. That's right. 1 month away. Lane Kiffin leads LSU into Ole Miss on a scale of 1 to 10. How toxic is that stadium environment going to be on a Saturday night? I mean, this thing is going to be absolutely insane. Can I be hyperbolic? A big word for me this early. I think this might be the most hyped college football game we've ever seen. This might be the biggest drama we've ever seen attached to any regular season football game. Have I gone too far?
No, you haven't gone too far. This game will reach levels of toxicity that this sport has never seen. And that's saying a lot considering this sport is nothing but toxic. I mean, I just think the fact that September 19th has become synonymous for this matchup, like just give the date and everyone's like, oh yeah, know what you're talking about. That's Ole Miss LSU. The fact that we've been talking about a regular season matchup between these two teams that have played every single year since like the 50s, I think is indicative of how massively hyped up this game is. The fact that Congress just passed a bill because of what one head coach did to his former team and then, to his new team. That just kind of leads to the toxicity, to the hype, to the buy-in. I mean, I think that conversation follows Lane Kiffin wherever he has gone, but this is unlike anything that we have ever seen in this sport. One coach leaving a school in the middle of a playoff run to go to another school that his former school hates probably more than any other team out there. It is juicy. And I know I have a rooting interest in this one. You see the helmet behind me. I went to LSU. I love LSU football more than any other team in America. But just taking my purple and gold tinted glasses off, which I can do, I mean, just taking my rooting interest out of it, it still is going to be one of the, if not the most hyped up, followed, and watched college football games that we've ever seen. I was in Knoxville for Lane Kiffin's return to Tennessee when Ole Miss played Tennessee. I think that was the 2021 season. This game will make that game where they threw mustard bottles and golf balls at Lane Kiffin look like a tea party.
They can't put enough police in this stadium. I'm just being honest, because frankly, there's going to be an entire group of Ole Miss fans that want to take out their rage, and there's going to be an entire group of LSU fans that are trying to buy their way into that stadium just to troll, right? So, like, that's such a toxic combination. The bars around, the entire tailgating area, no matter how many cops they put around Lane, it's probably not enough. To your point, I remember covering that game while I was in Bristol at the time, but covering that game where mustard and golf was thrown at Lane Kiffin. And I thought about that immediately, thinking that's child's play compared to what they're going to try and get into the stadium to throw at Lane Kiffin. Now, I got to be clear. I'm not supporting that. I'm not encouraging that. I'm just acknowledging it's inevitable, right? There is so much hurt in this game. There are just feelings that have been hurt at a level that is almost funny to me, because what you have right now are a whole group of people that are taking it personally. Not you necessarily, Caroline, because you do a great job of separating your fandom from your analyst responsibility. But the fact is, Ole Miss fans are hurt and will forever be hurt for the way it went down last year. There are LSU fans that are hurt because they think they're being singled out as doing something that's weird when it happens all the time in college football. So the worst thing you can have in college football isn't just a rivalry game. It's a rivalry game where everybody involved in the entire process has hurt feelings from the minute they walk into the room. There's zero chance that this thing doesn't have some sort of drama that becomes a factor of it in this game before we even get to kickoff.
I also think it's important to point out, before the Lane Kiffin of it all, these two teams and these two fan bases already hated each other. Like, this is a rivalry that goes back a very long time. The Magnolia Bowl is on the line. There's a trophy for this matchup. I've been to several LSU Ole Miss games. I went to LSU. I went to every game in Baton Rouge and in Oxford when I was a student there. I've been back for a couple of matchups since I graduated. It's one of my favorite matchups every single year because it is so contentious and it is so chippy. Even when LSU went on a streak where they were beating Ole Miss every single year and Ole Miss was having kind of a down period of their football program, it was still chippy and it was still contentious. It was a guarantee that there were going to be multiple fist fights between Ole Miss and LSU fans while they were tailgating before the game in the stadium. We even saw a fist fight between Ole Miss and LSU baseball fans this past season. These two fan bases hate each other, always have, always will, and the Lane Kiffin of it all just adds so much more fuel to the fire. The Lane Kiffin of it all would have created a rivalry where a rivalry didn't even exist previously, but you add on top of the fact that these are two storied and historic football programs that go back a long way and hate each other so deeply, and then you add on Lane Kiffin of it all, that just adds, to the pageantry. I think the fact that this game is in Oxford makes it that that much more interesting. This matchup would be interesting and fun no matter what, but there's something different about Ole Miss fans coming to Lane Kiffin's house that would take a little bit of the razzle-dazzle of it out. No, Lane Kiffin is going back to Oxford. He's going to be coaching back in Vaught Hemingway. This is Ole Miss's house that he's stepping back into, which is a little scary for Lane Kiffin, to be honest with you.
I need both of these teams to do their jobs leading up to this game because the shine on two undefeated teams facing each other. Now, Ole Miss opens the season with the tough game against Louisville in Nashville. And then you've got LSU opening the season at home against Clemson. So, there is some opportunity here. I'm not saying either of these teams are on upset alert. I would certainly expect that Clemson, LSU, I would expect that LSU wins that game. I would expect that Ole Miss beats Louisville. But frankly, I need to make sure everybody does their due portion of this and gets that done. Also, both of these teams, and I think this is one of the most interesting parts of the college football schedule, both of these teams play big games the week after this game. You cannot tell me that Texas A&M gets LSU the week after this game, and then Ole Miss gets Florida the week after this game. You cannot tell me that Texas A&M and Florida didn't both just high-five the gods of college football when they saw the schedule coming out, because you can't tell me there won't be a letdown. No matter what the outcome in this is in this game, there will be an emotional letdown after what we see on September 19th. They don't get bye weeks. They're both back in action in conference against conference teams they need to beat on September 26th for their expectations this season. So I think the lingering effects of this game might be one of the most interesting angles to it.
I could see a realistic possibility where Ole Miss beats LSU at home and then turns around and loses to Florida on the road. Because there is something about being a head coach and getting your team back up after a loss and letting the hangover, linger a little bit too long after a win. It was just something that Pete Golding has not had to deal with quite yet. I know he was the coach in the college football playoff, but that's just different when you're playing, Tulane in the college football playoff. I will ask you, though, because I feel some type of way about it, having a rooting interest in it. Who has more pressure in this game, Pete Golding or Lane Kiffin?
Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin has all the pressure. I think Lane Kiffin has more pressure all season. Pete Golding right now, we just don't know. And this is why, in some ways, I know this is anti to everything that we've already said about this game. In some ways, this game is going to be, to me, at its core, overhyped. Because I'm not really sure we know what Pete Golding's going to look like long-term as the coach for Ole Miss. It worked in the playoffs, but I have no idea what that's going to look like right now. I believe that the loss of Lane Kiffin as an offensive mastermind will cost them some games this year. So Ole Miss takes a step back. And then we ask the question of, well, how quickly can LSU become what Ole Miss or what Lane Kiffin believes they can be? I'm not sure. At its core, this is the number 13 team versus the number 11 or 11 9, whatever it was. This is two top 10-ish teams taking each other on at Ole Miss with a ton of pressure on Lane Kiffin to go in and be the wonder coach in this matchup. So I do think that's interesting, and how it'll play out this season is interesting. But to me, far more pressure on Lane Kiffin. There's going to be far more pressure on LSU all year than I think anybody in the SEC.
I almost think this game has nothing to do with Pete Golding, to be honest with you. And I know that Pete Golding's going to want to get his lick back, and that whole team's going to want to get their revenge, and the fans are going to be hungry to, beat their ex who left them for the prettier girl. But if Ole Miss loses this game, look, it would not be the first time that a first-time head coach lost a rivalry matchup in week 3. This would not be the first time that an Ole Miss coach lost a football game at home to LSU. It just wouldn't. This will be the first time that a head coach returns to his former team less than a year removed from leaving them in the middle of a playoff run. We have never seen that before. All the pressure is on Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, and that's why September 19th has already been circled on so many calendars. Neither confirmed nor denied. We're just going to manifest it. Yahoo Sports Daily live from the Grove. I'm just saying, we'll just
put
keep
it out
saying
there
it. We'll
into
just
the
put it out there,
universe.
and we'll manifest that into, and we'll see how manifesting actually works. All right, coming up next, we're going to get back to the NFL. Flemlo going to join us. We'll get his thoughts on some great NFL players, past, present.
And that's really what we get into with the first quarterback I want to talk about, Sam Levitt, transferring from Arizona State over to LSU. You're going to plug Sam Levitt into that system with his ability to create outside of structure, his ability to get yards. On the ground, I think you're going to see him really outperform where he's being drafted right now. In a Power 4 only format, I have him as QB5 right now.
We're in a very, very bad time for the perception of college football. There's a fatigue point that people keep debating. Is it because of NIL? Is it because of portal? Is it because of what's going on in Congress? And I think the average consumer, and there's still more average consumers that listen and watch this show than there are industry insiders. There is a fatigue point with perpetual revision of the postseason format. People aren't as stupid as the individuals in this industry seem to think that they are.
Who is your breakout candidate for this year?
Kind of think Isaiah Likely with the New York Giants is a really good candidate this year. Kind of wide receiver room that could rotate a little bit and be useful players, but they don't, to me, have one dynamic. Even Fields, who I like, I don't know that he's gonna be like a dynamic guy that right off the bus, round 3 rookie, leads the team in targets. I think that could actually be Isaiah Likely. Tight ends on their second contracts have been good bets to make. I think Likely is a good bet to make this year.
How is your recovery going?
It's going good. You know, it's a long process. I think that's what I've learned throughout this entire thing. And so all I can do is be as great as I can be every single day. You know, it's tough. You have to just maximize that day and then slowly get better and better as the year goes on. And so just having the guys back and getting to be back on the football field will kind of get me going in order to get ready for the season.
A lot of guys rush the passer because they have the physical tools. They punch a clock, chase some guys around, and then they clock out. But other guys punch the clock on the day they were born, and they won't clock out until the day they die. Jared Allen was one of a kind. That from Flemlo Raps, who's an absolute phenom on YouTube, hanging out with us now. The latest NFL deep dive from our guest today. Flemlo, how'd you come up with the idea? I wanted to do deep dive and backgrounds on players that may have been more forgotten from their NFL careers.
It's just a lot of the players that I grew up on and kind of in the new kind of sports landscape, they really weren't being represented. So I actually started doing these probably about 7, 8 years ago. It was at that time, it was only like me. It was Urinating Tree, cat named KTO and 5 Points. It was like 5, 6 of us. It wasn't many. So I just wanted to represent for that era, the era I grew up on and some of my favorite players. And I found out it's a pretty big market of guys who miss those players as well.
Urinating Tree, friend of the show. He was on earlier. We love him here on Yahoo Sports Daily. Is there a specific story or athlete who made you kind of fall in love with this kind of way of storytelling?
I mean, like my favorite athlete growing up was probably somebody like Chad Ochocinco. But the one who probably made me fall in love with this type of storytelling, I'll say Josh Gordon. The Josh Gordon story, the way it was being kind of represented was, you know, he had his stay off the weed, he had his addiction issues and stuff like that. And when I dug into his story, I realized, I was like, dude, there's so much more here. Like he was having those type of issues, addiction issues when he was like 13, like in the bathroom in junior high. So I'm like, okay, this part of the story is not being told. So I kind of dove into it. There was a bunch of information out there, weaved it together. And that was one of my favorite like early videos that I did like years ago that people really gravitated towards. And like you learned a lot about them.
It's interesting to me when you get into this because like, look, my background when I first started was in podcasts before podcasts were a big thing. Like in 2012, 13, I had to explain to people what I was trying to get them to come on because nobody had even heard of podcasts, right? For you, when you first started this approach, how hard was it to get buy-in from guys that you wanted to talk to?
Well, the thing is, the beauty of it is what I do is just research based. So I don't typically talk to them first. Now, interestingly enough, a lot of them hit me up afterwards. When I did a story on Ray Rice and a deep dive into that whole situation, which is a very sticky situation. And he and his wife actually reached out to me afterwards, and they were very appreciative of, I handled it with care, and they felt like it was a fair representation. And, I've got a bunch of stories like that where I do these videos, and we talking about guys' lives, a lot of personal things, of course, weaved in with their careers as well. And then they end up reaching out to me afterwards. Because the funny thing is, most of the information is out there. It's just people don't take the time to go and find it. You know what I mean? So I'll go and find it, put it together, weave it together in a narrative, and then present it to the audience to take all of it in, instead of just getting the highlights or the lowlights, which is usually what's being presented.
I mean, we fall in love with big games, big touchdown runs,
Yeah, those are dope.
championships, the on the court, on the field things. But I think we also fall in love with the human side of these athletes too. I think we need to remember they're not just players or a number, these are humans. You
Yeah.
tell those humanizing stories. What made you realize that there was a market or an appetite for those kind of stories?
Frustration. Frustration from watching them be portrayed in such like a flat 2D way. And I never wanted to come, like, a lot of people misconstrue what I do and they say, oh man, you're so positive. And I don't really look at it like that. I just try to tell the entire thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, let me just look at everything. Because humans, like you say, we're very complicated creatures. And none of us are like perfect. We all got our quirks and our issues, and we've all probably done some things that we're not proud of. But generally speaking, if we can look at those things and take ownership and accountability from them, we learn from it. And when we dive in on somebody else's story, we can then learn from their story. You know what I'm saying? Instead of having to go through every single mistake ourselves, we can turn on the game film, so to speak, and learn from that and better our lives and better ourselves, and kind of check ourselves and look in the mirror like, oh yeah, I kind of did that, or I was kind of judging this cat and I didn't really understand, what was going on. But at the same time, I do hold people accountable at the same time. I'm not just out here like, oh, it's okay. You know what I mean? I'm like, nah, you messed that up. You deserve to pay for your fine. But at the same time, once you pay for your fine, all right, cool. Now you back, come on back in. We human, we all messed up, and we can move forward. You feel what I'm saying?
Of the deep dives you've done, which one do you think has resonated with fans the most, where you've gotten the most feedback of the I never realized?
That's tough. I've done so many, bro. I've been doing it for years. So
Yeah.
I'll give maybe a couple.
Sure.
One of my favorites is you may recognize his name, you may not. It's a guy named Damon Sheehy Giuseppe, right? Interesting name. He was a preseason player for the Browns a few years ago. He actually scored a touchdown wearing OBJ's cleats. That's when Odell was over there. He let him borrow his cleats, and he took a punt return for a touchdown in preseason. But the thing, and that was the height of his career. But that story's probably got like 3 million views or something like that. And the reason is because he essentially lied his way in. So he was homeless for a long time. He was playing flag football. He heard about a tip that the Browns were having like this tryout. He gets to the trip, has no money, so he's sleeping like at a 24-hour gym for like a week until the tryout comes. Gets there, lies and says he knows Alonzo Highsmith, which was the Browns maybe president or some high-ranking guy with the Browns at that time. And when he got in there, he walked straight to Alonzo and like tries to introduce himself. Like, and Alonzo's like, bro, I really don't know you, but you went through so much to get here. Let's just see what you got. And he got a shot, played in preseason, scores a touchdown wearing Odell's. You know what I'm saying? It's a crazy story. And I started to realize at that point, it's like, I do the Hall of Famers, but there's also guys who like the highest they ever got was like a practice squad, but their story is so compelling that it still resonates with people. You know what I'm saying? So that's one of my favorite ones.
So cool. I love
amazing.
that.
Yeah.
What is your process? Because frankly, that is a story I've never heard of. It's a guy I've never heard of. How
Yeah.
do you discover these stories and kind of go throughout your research process?
I just kind of I wish it was more scientific. So this is
Doesn't need
typically
to be.
how I approach it. about 75% of the videos that I'll kind of put on my list to do are guys that I just remember that no one's talking about. And also the audience request guys as well. So I'll kind of take all of those, and that usually makes up about 75%. Then you have these outlier stories like Damon Sheehy Giuseppe, like a couple of other guys. I just did like Art Schlichter recently, that a lot of people don't know, but their stories are just so compelling. And I'll just search. I'm just looking for crazy player stories, and then, okay, has anybody covered them? Which that wasn't a problem back in the day, but now it's like a lot of people do this. So sometimes if someone has covered it recently and they've done a good job, I'll be like, I ain't gonna touch it. You know what I'm saying? But so I got to run it through that process as well. But I'm always just looking. Like I'm very interested in it. I got a bunch of hobbies, but when I'm looking, and I'll take them and I'll put them down on my little list. And once I can kind of sell myself on it, if I could tell my wife the story in like 3 minutes and she'd be like, that's interesting, I'll be like, okay, cool, that's one. I'm gonna do that. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I test them.
Now that you're as popular as you are, do you have people that are reaching out to you that are like, hey man, tell my story. I want my story out there.
Yeah. I don't love that. Like I've done it before, but it just I like to go into the stories and be as unbiased as a human can be. I mean, of course we all have biases, but I like to be able to see the narrative for what I think it is and then present it. And I'm very like clear that I am presenting you this through my filter. You know what I'm saying? So the person might feel differently about XYZ, but I'm gonna provide evidence for anything that I'm saying, as far as like a quote or an article, you know what I'm saying? Things like that. Or I'll just specifically say, okay, this is my interpretation of my opinion, and then I'll give you that part. But yeah, you get players reaching out. I've done a few of those. A few of them have actually worked. I did my favorite one was somebody reaching out. There's two. There's Takeo Spikes. I did about 5 years ago now. He reached out, and we ended up kind of working together and doing one, and that one did real well. And then there's another one. Oh my goodness, I'm forgetting my guy's name, but it was I used to cover a lot of Last Chance U stuff. So it was a Last Chance U story. He wasn't even really on the show, like talking about the Last Chance U team played against his team, but he had played for the Last Chance U team before. So I kind of told his story, getting information from him, but I typically don't like to do that. I really like to get it from a quote unquote neutral source and then filter it through my brain.
You have built such a successful platform with what you're doing now. What's your ultimate goal?
My ultimate goal, I've got a few. I've done all of this solo for 10 years. Like I write everything, I obviously record everything, I edit everything, I do everything. And I've realized that is really dumb. Like it's just not smart. And it's because it's a lot. It's kind of, yeah. And I haven't been able to keep up my output, especially in recent years. I actually burnt out recently, and I'm just kind of getting back. But I was down for like a couple of years, so I was uploading pretty sporadically. But now I'm looking to I'm in the process of building a small team and training guys up who had the same type of mindset, and replacing myself in some of these jobs. And then I'm also I just finished the second draft of my fiction book, because storytelling is a skill that is not just held on YouTube. I can do it in multiple platforms. And my fiction book is going to be dope. So I have that. And then I'd say right now, that's probably the two things that I'm building towards. So hopefully within the next 2 to 3 years, I've got a smooth process with a smooth team that's well taken care of, and we all locked in, and I'm dropping every week, the highest of quality. And I got my first book on the shelf, and with a major publishing company, and doing my thing.
I love that. That's amazing. And I love what you're doing. Real quick, before we get you out of here, you're a Bengals fan. How you feeling this year? Feel good about Cincy?
I do. I feel really good. I'm really happy that they finally addressed the defense. It's the Bengals can be a bit annoying as far as like being a fan because we'll come in with these glaring weaknesses and they'll just be like, maybe some guys will take a step. And I'm like, bro, you cannot bank on that. But yeah, we brought in Dexy, we brought in Jonathan Allen, Boye Mafe, and beefed up that defensive line. And now, if Miles Murphy takes a step, okay, cool. We don't have to be the guy. He can be one of the guys. Shamar Stewart, disappointed he got hurt for the preseason because he needed these reps. But, happy he's not out for the whole season. So I'm real happy with what they've done with the defense. On offense, obviously, we have all of our guys. We brought the whole O-line back. That's all good. Shotgun, we're going to do our thing. No question. My thing that I want to see, I really want to see them prioritize the run early in the season and not just like, okay, we're going to run it, get 3-4 yards, like attack. Like go out there and attack because everybody expects us to pass it. Everybody plays two high safeties. You got to beat them up and make them come out of it. We don't got to throw a pass for the first quarter. You know what I mean? Just pound the ball and show them what we willing and that we going to beat you like this. If we can show them that, now all of a sudden they can't just play the pass and pass rushers can't just pin their ears back and, make our lives miserable.
You guys can watch him on YouTube and follow him at Flemlo Raps. You know where to get to him. Can't wait to see you on the sideline. You got 1 million people watching what you're doing. The Bengals should be putting you on the sidelines before a game. I'm putting it out there. I'm putting it out there, Flemlo, man. We appreciate you. Great work, dude. Great to see what you built. We really appreciate you hanging out with us today. Thanks for the time.
Thank y'all for inviting me. Appreciate you.
Great stuff from Flemlo. Absolutely crushing it. Coming up next, some awards you didn't know you needed. We'll tell you about it next.
Losing Laramie Tunsil, top 3 left tackle in the NFL, it's a huge deal because now this offensive line goes from interesting to maybe bad. Now, Brandon Coleman, who's my X factor for them, he did start all of 2024, his rookie year, and they were one of the best offenses in the NFL that season. If you want to be this more, under center, deep drop back passing game, you're going to need your protection to be really good, as opposed to like we're in the gun and getting it out in the horizontal raid with Cliff Kingsbury. Who there tempts you the most, and is it Drake May because your heart is a flutter still for Drake May?
It is Drake May. If you draft Drake May, you ask yourself, are we still on the front 9 with A.J. Brown? Is he going to win the breakup with the Eagles? Is Romeo Doubs, did they overpay for him and overslot him, or is he really an impact player? It's going to hurt me when I don't draft Drake May this year. I don't think I'm going to do it very often. I may not even do it at all.
The thing with Derrick Henry, which I really admired with him with the Titans for sure. You see 22 on the field, he's getting the ball. Derrick Henry's coming. Derrick Henry was the focal point of that offense for years. But guess what? Still, nobody stopped him. With Derrick Henry, he's another year older, but he does not look another year closer to falling off. He does not look another year closer to slowing down. And he seems like he can go for as long as he wants to.
Darian Mensah was not the only player who left Duke that day to go to Miami. His best receiver, Cooper Barkate, went with him. He was the best receiver in the Ivy League at Harvard in 2024. He graduates from Harvard. He hops in the portal, goes to Duke, and has 1,100 receiving yards at Duke last year. Well, now he goes to Miami.
Harvard to Miami. How can you not love this sport right now? This is fantastic.
Look at that. Oh, man. Didn't know that was going to be up on the screen right now. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports Daily. You see it right there? Look at this. Broadcaster of the Year, Sideline Reporter of the Year. We got some hardware, some awards coming out from the Indoor Football League. Absolutely incredible season. We are joined now by Jared Widman, president of the IFL's business division. Widman, didn't know this was going to be up on the screen. Thank you.
Did you guys hear me? Mic check.
Look at that. Look at that. He's got the finger mic.
Well, congratulations, guys. This is awesome. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. I'm just shocked that I was able to beat out Babcheck for anything.
Yeah. Well, listen, that's it. Let's start here, though. You guys missed some games this year, and I've heard excuses about July 4th weekend, the beach, weddings, and open heart surgery. You guys couldn't come up with anything better than that. Who gets football season. This guy faked surgery just to take the summer off.
You know,
how you feeling?
Slackers.
I feel great. You thought I badgered you last year. Now I'm already looking at next season. I'm like, so what's the plan? What's the plan, Widman? What are we doing? Now this is, I mean, for all of us involved in this, I think I flash back to where we were in February and March and just hearing about the IFL and having no idea what to expect. I remember Caroline and I both being on calls in the beginning of this thing. It's like, man, this is real? This is happening. And I think back to the first game we did.
Is this a real thing?
I mean, I think back to the very first game we did and how exciting it was to do that with Tice and to think about where the season went. It's just a tremendous honor. It's incredible to be acknowledged for the work that we did. To get the opportunities you guys gave us was an incredible honor.
So, Caroline, you don't know this. The first game of the year, you guys were there with Nate Tice, and Fitz and I went to the gym that morning. And so he inspired me to lose a little weight, and he called the boss. He called the commissioner, and he said, I did like a HIIT workout for 45 minutes, and Jared had an energy drink and walked at 1.3 on the treadmill. He didn't do much, so he threw me under the bus day one. But, yeah, look how far we've come since Fisher's that night. I mean, Fitz, you did play-by-play. You did sideline work. You were an analyst. They made you throw a ball from the booth onto the field and do the national anthem. We did 4 games in a mall. Think about this year. And Caroline, it was the voice of the league on the field and the sideline reporter of the year. It was a huge year, and I never thought in a million years 6.1 million people watched us play football this year.
Absolutely astonishing. I mean, that number makes me proud. And not that we need a number or a statistic to tell us how successful we are, because we've already felt so successful just being a part of this league, but it surely doesn't hurt. But I remember going back to that first Quad City Fishers game, Fitz, Tice, and I were all texting each other like, I don't know what we're getting ourselves into, but we're just ready for it. But the moment that we touched down and we were welcomed by you, everybody at Fishers, everyone at the league was like, what do you need? Do you need, meetings with the coaches, meetings with the players, whatever it is that you might need? We are more than happy to provide that for you. So even though we didn't really know what we were getting ourselves into, we knew that we were stepping into a family, and we knew that we felt supported. And that feeling only just grew over time.
You guys were tremendous. I remember the first game we took a picture, and the three of us were about the same size. And Tice is about 1.5 feet taller than all of us. He's awkward,
if not more.
Into the picture. And then all night at the awards gala, Commissioner Tryon kept asking, "Where's Fitz? Where's Fenton? Where's Fitz? Where's Fenton?" And then Brent Stover had to accept your awards for you guys. So that was an extra little perk there.
No, that's great. I got to give Brent some grief on that. Part of the championship weekend was also a huge announcement for the league, expansion of an entire division. So right now we're talking about 4 new teams, which is obviously huge. What's the plan for the league moving forward?
The plan for the league is to put as many teams humanly possible that Caroline could get to on a tank of gas. So we added Savannah, we added Athens. We need more Caroline Fenton. So I want it to where she could ride a bicycle. And now, Jason, you have the worst airport on the planet. There is not a single city you can get to on a direct flight. So we may have to go somewhere near Hartford to get you to a game, and you'd still have to take a connection.
That's it. You are right. With those 4, we see Texas, Arkansas, Athens, Savannah. That's a new division. You've talked a lot about the fact that you just can't put a team out in an island. So is there more expansion coming that you have your eyes on?
Absolutely is more. Yep. So if you think about a year ago today, Jacksonville was on an island. In the last 52 weeks, we've added Orlando, we've added Savannah, we've added Athens. That changes the dynamics where they can take a bus ride right to the game. We're at 18 teams now, and I promise you we're not slowing down. I'm getting on a plane tomorrow morning.
Ooh, fun little tease there for us to look forward to. And let me just state for the record, if I need to hitchhike to one of these games, I will. If I need to hitchhike to Vegas, I'll do it. Just give me a little bit of time. It's going to take me longer to get to Vegas than it will Savannah or Athens. I'm just curious, just take me into the mind of the president of the IFL. How do you prioritize some of these markets, and what are some important boxes that you need to check to know that, hey, this is the right market, the right city, the right fan base for the Indoor Football League?
The first thing we do is strong ownership, and we are so blessed to have wonderful, wonderful owners. They took the elite this year and brought in broadcasters like yourself. So we need strong, strong ownership and a great building. You guys talk about Fishers. That's one of our new markets there. That building is absolutely gorgeous. It has all the setups we need. We also want, Fitz, all jokes, we want airports where you can get in and out of quickly. Putting people on rent-a-cars for a 3-hour drive after you land isn't great. And the other thing is we want to build divisions. We have a Southeast division. Tulsa now has San Antonio, Austin, Arkansas. Obviously, 3 teams in Arizona and Vegas. Building it that way is something that we do, and it's how we want to build this strategically.
When you guys look at all of the successes from this season and you're thinking about this season in 5 or 10 years, what's a moment that will stand out to you where you looked around and you thought, yeah, we made it. This is crushing.
I think on camera, you throwing the football and overshooting the ref all the way from the booth on national TV, throwing the football out from the booth was huge. When we got those first numbers, that was they were worried he wasn't going to make it. He cleared it to the other. When we got those first numbers, that was big. We were looking at numbers this year. We thought about 1.7, 1.8 million. Looking at 6 million people watching these games. We outrated MLS games this year. We outrated some UFL games this year that were on ESPN. That's huge for us. Now, Caroline, I have a special request for you. I know that your falls are sometimes destroyed by LSU. As you know, you saw on the graphic, one of our broadcasters is Smacker Mile. Her dad has caught on to Yahoo Sports Daily, and he has requested to you to do a game with Smacker that he comes to next year.
Count me in.
Yes.
Done.
So the IFL, LSU, we're bringing people together here.
I am absolutely here for this. It's a crossover of my favorite league and my favorite team. The IFL and the LSU Tigers. What more can I ask for? The only thing that I have to request on behalf of Les Miles, though, is I don't know if you have real grass in IFL arenas, and you can't eat turf. So maybe even just like a small patch for Les Miles to snack on.
I want to give a quick pop to Joey Bonadonna, our young broadcaster of the year. Fitz, a good friend of yours, a good friend of mine. Curtis Riggs, the immortal 11-time world champion, was the analyst of the year. And you can't have an award ceremony without giving Ari Wolf an award. It's a rule. So we gave him play-by-play of the year.
That's amazing. It's incredible to be part of this team. It's been an incredible year, and it's just starting. The IFL's not going anywhere. We're not going to stop talking about it. You know that. Can't wait to see what next year holds. Congratulations, by the way. Darren Widman not only just crushing you with the IFL, but also lost over 50 pounds this season. During a football season, lost over 50 pounds. Let's go, Widman.
Commissioner Tryon told me I had till the coin flip of the championship to lose 50 pounds. WBC got me dialed in. And I got to congratulate Fitz, our guy, Kevin Guy. I'll tell this story as we wind down here. First time Fitz ever went to the game, he's like, yeah, Kevin loves him some Kevin. I said, to be the guy, you got to beat the guy. As we're leaving, his face is on the light poles of every light pole outside his arena. His face is on the van. But listen, to be the guy, you got to beat the guy. He's the champ once again.
Yeah, nobody does it better, and nobody did it better than Kevin Guy in Arizona this year. Congratulations to them as the champion. Jared, congratulations to you and all the success. We will catch up soon, my friend. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Love you guys. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
That's great stuff Jared. As always from Widman. And it was a great season. I'm still stunned for us to have taken home some hardware on that. Is unbelievably cool, Caroline. I'm stunned and excited, but what a year it was for all of us.
Stunned, but so proud and just so grateful. Being part of this league is an absolute blast, and getting recognized by this league is truly humbling. And especially looking at the field, there were so many amazing sideline reporters that told so many great stories. But Fitzy, you did literally everything, and you helped me along the way. Any question that I had, you were like, boom, here's 6 different answers and all of these different resources that you could use so you made me a better broadcaster, and you made me a better IFL mind, my friend. So happy to be along on the ride with you.
What I know is that when the trophy gets here, it's going on the set behind me. That's that like, I do love me a good trophy. Gonna find a good spot for it right there. All right, congratulations to the NFL, or IFL, I should say. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Thanks for watching Yahoo Sports Daily. Come back. See us again tomorrow.